Okay, we're starting to see a couple more participants join in. We'll give it one more minute. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to join via Zoom versus Teams, and then we'll get started. All right, it is 1:03 and Eastern time. It's 10 a.m. on Pacific time, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our ACC Young Professionals webinar. Today, the topic is going to be about career transitions, and this is our Q2 webinar of 2024. I will pass it on to Morgan Chapman, who's going to be introducing today's moderators.
Thanks, Blanca. I'm Morgan Chapman. I am one of the ACCYP Committee's co-webinar coordinators. I am a civil aviation engineer at HDR. My partner is Blanca Rocha Becerra. She is an international business development coordinator at Blast Effectors International. We're now going to talk a little bit about what ACC is. Airports Consultants Council is a global trade association that represents private businesses involved in the development and operation of airports and their related facilities. Part of ACC's mission is to inform its members of new trends while promoting fair competition and procurement practices that protect the industry's bottom line. Some of the events that ACC does include training, networking, and regulatory owner interface.
And what is the ACCYP committee, or the Young Professionals Committee? And for those of you that are new to ACC and the YP committee, it's a means to engage young professionals in airport development and enhance your professional careers. The targeted industry is for professionals who are 35 years old and younger, or anyone really that is new to and starting their careers in aviation. And the committee is intended to provide networking, mentoring, education, and career growth opportunities. And so we do a lot of different programs. We put together some webinars. We do quarterly calls, and all of that is just to kind of keep everyone connected and just providing more opportunities for young professionals. A couple of announcements that we have is the ACC Security Technology Conference is going to be held in Arlington, Virginia on October 7 through 10. Registration is now open. You can go ahead and register through the ACC online page, which we have up on the screen. Also, the 46th ACC Annual Conference. This one is going to be held in Scottsdale, Arizona on October 21 to 23. Registration is not open yet, but it will be opening soon. And we also have our quarterly calls, which we don't have the next one scheduled yet, but look out for an email from ACC for registration in the upcoming months. And also YP regional meetups are back. And if you're interested in sponsoring or helping coordinate a meetup, please reach out to Grace at ACC, and her email address is also on the screen. And then Grace, if you don't mind sending your email address or sending this link via the chat so that everyone can reach out to you, that would be wonderful.
And now on to our speakers for today. We have 4 speakers, each with different backgrounds and have experienced different career transitions. And we hope that we can give the YPs on the call some guidance and advice with career transitions. First, we have Kevin Smith. He is a planning market leader at Mead & Hunt. We'll also be hearing from Appia Bellingham. She is the Chief Development Officer at the City of Philadelphia Department of Aviation. After that, we will hear from Barry Rondinella. He is the interim CEO at Aeroplex Aero Lease Group. And lastly, but not least, we'll hear from TJ Chen. He is the Chief Administrative Officer, Deputy Director of Planning and Development at Sacramento County Airport System. And I will now hand it over to Kevin Smith.
Well, thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Just an honor to be invited to talk just for a few minutes about my path. It started in, 1997, I believe, with my first job. I work for Mead & Hunt. I'm a market leader. I work primarily in the western part of the United States, helping airports and some private sector clients work through airport planning projects and issues. So it's a lot of fun. Next slide. So just a little bit about me. So I'm passionate for aviation. It all started in May of 1986 when a movie called Top Gun came out. I was a very impressionable 16-year-old, and that got me all jazzed about everything that had to do with aviation. And I got my first job at an airport shortly after that, washing airplanes and working at Navajo Aviation at Buchanan Field in Concord, California, for flight time at a Piper Tomahawk, which I thought was a very safe airplane at the time. Now we know that they're still a safe airplane. I love that airplane, but they didn't build very many of them, but got to fly those. So that kind of got me into aviation. So I've spent the last 27 years working mostly for public agencies as a city planner and a community development director. You can see some of these positions I've kind of worked in, but I did get into airports about 15 years ago, which I was really excited about, which is what I always wanted to do as an airport manager in Lake Tahoe, California. And I love airports. I love everything about them. You know, when I go to airports, commercial service airports, I walk the terminals and just kind of look how things are laid out, what they put on the walls, what kind of displays they have. Just, all those things are just fascinating to me. So these pictures here, just real quick, the top picture, I had the best view in aviation. That was the view. I took that picture out of my office window in Lake Tahoe. That's North Star, California. Right on the other side of that mountain is Lake Tahoe. And airports will take you to some fun places in your career that you'll get to work at. So yeah, I spent 12 years there at the Turkey Tahoe Airport, living in California, and then I've just recently, about 3-4 years ago, moved down to Reno, Nevada, where I currently live. And I've got one of my favorite pictures in Nevada, which is the extraterrestrial highway. If you've ever been to Alamo and Tonopah and driven that road in between, it's about 130 miles of almost nothing. Except Rachel, Nevada, and a few other places. And at one point, you get about 12 miles from Area 51 in Groom Lake. I haven't seen anything out there, but I'm hoping I do someday. But driving between there and St. George, Utah, where my parents live, is been a lot of fun. And then, yeah, I spent my first 15 years of my career in city government in Utah. Really enjoyed my time in Utah. And then, obviously, I live close to Lake Tahoe, California. And that was kind of with this slide, one of the things, just all these different places you may get to work at and how mobile you can be, working, for airports or consulting. Next slide. So just some career transition advice. These are some of the questions that they sent to us that talks about, and I may have or may not have mentioned this, but 2 years ago, I transitioned to consulting after, 27 years in the public sector. And just some advice making that transition. I've really enjoyed it. But just a couple things to kind of think about as you're moving through your career early on. That first thing is, what do you value? I loved airports, but my first 15 years of my career, I couldn't land that airport job I wanted, and I ended up working for cities and along the Wasatch Front in Utah, and I had a great time. I loved doing it. Did a lot of land use planning, but I learned everything I did there prepared me for a job opportunity that happened, 15 years ago, just under 15 years ago, with the Truckee Tower Airport, where I was able to go manage that airport. But so find what you love to do, but start somewhere. We see some people that maybe bounce around a little bit, or they don't know what they want to do, so they don't do anything. Well, to jump into something and start there, particularly if you're with a company or an airport, and it'll develop into something. You'll as you get into an organization, you'll find out what is interesting and what you might like. I also would caution people not to bounce around too much early on. Give things a chance to develop. As you get later in your career, bouncing around is more commonplace. But early on, stick around somewhere for a few years and give it a chance and see what you can develop into. So just one thing to think about. Also, get involved in your professional organizations. Volunteer committees. I think the number one thing you can do is conference program committees. They're always looking for people. You can get on one of those committees, and when you're on one of those committees, you'll find yourself moderating panels at different conferences. And if I'm going to a conference, I usually volunteer to be on the program committee. And just one example is I'm moderating a session at SWAHI in the Southwest Chapter American Association of Airport Executives, our conference in Sacramento. I've got a session there, and then 2 weeks later, I'm moderating a panel at the General Aviation Conference in Seattle. And all I had to do is raise my hand and say, "Yeah, I'll help with that." And the next thing you know, you're right in the thick of it. So that's kind of fun. Get to know your coworkers. In the age of work from home, this is very important. My company has about 1,200 employees, and a lot of us do a lot of home work. We work at home, or we work various days at home. So using Teams, using all the tools that we have that we're using right now to get out there and get to know your coworkers. That helps build those internal and external networks. And then also, maintain a healthy work-life balance. And I've heard the term recently thrown around of work-life integration, because as we work from home, we tend to integrate our work into our life, which is okay, but make sure you find that balance, and then look for an employer who values that. If you have an employer that doesn't value that, that might be something you want to really take a close look at, that your employer cares about you that you're balancing that work-life balance. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through all this stuff. This is recorded. You can come back and look at this. This is just my observations of spending a long time in the public sector, and then a couple of years in the private sector. There's a lot of pros and cons to each. And just quick, a couple of my favorites with the public agencies is you get to work at an airport. That's something I miss. I have to drive to one now and look through the fence a lot of times, or unless I have a job at an airport, I get to walk inside the fence. But that's always something I really loved. You get to be around planes, if you're working at an airport. But the public agencies, great benefits, great pensions. Don't underestimate the value of a publicly funded state pension system. I know early on in your career it might not seem important, but I guarantee you it will later in your career. And they're still out there with a lot of state agencies. The work can be very rewarding with high impact on the public as you're working in the public sector. There's some transparency. That's a pro and a con. It's great to be transparent, but also everything you do is public. Some of the cons, working for the public agency, let's form a committee. It's something that you'll hear a lot. You want to get something done, but you got to form a committee first. And you got to spend 3 months going through it. It can be political. I will say most of it tends to be nonpartisan. It's not Republican, Democrat type politics. It's just local politics that get involved there. Compensation is fair, but earning potential is somewhat capped. Bonuses are not very common in public agencies. Private companies, you can move quick on decisions mostly. There's no cap on pay, although relatively speaking, but bonuses are more common. There's things like that we see. Also in consulting, I found that you can, if you have a passion that you like, a lot of times your company will let you pursue that a little bit and see if it's something that your company wants to pursue. And you also get in the weeds on some of these planning and engineering issues that you don't typically get to in the public sector. That's what consultants do. But the cons may not quite be as stable, although it is pretty stable in what we do because there's a lot of federal funding that flows into airports. The benefits typically aren't quite as good, but they're not bad. They do a good job with that. Bottom line can't be ignored. There's stuff you want to do, but we have to make sure that there's a return on what we're doing. The biggest thing I think going from public to private is one of the cons is when you're public airport, the airport's always open, and sometimes those calls come in, and some of the other folks that work at airports, TJ, Barry may agree that when that phone rings and it's after hours, you always put that phone up, to your ear, kind of slow, wondering what just happened at my airport. You don't have that in consulting. That's been for mental health. That's been something that I've noticed that has been a benefit to me. But I do still miss being at an airport. So there's some pros and cons. You can go through those. There's a lot more that you can kind of go through, but I want to make sure we have lots of time for everyone else. My last slide there. Yeah, so my transition from public to private, again, 26 years in the as a public administrator and airport manager, and then 2 years in consulting. So just some advice. Public service is fun. I enjoyed it. It's great. And as you mentioned, I just mentioned that pension thing again. There it is. I did really enjoy all my time in the public sector. As a consultant, I really enjoy working at many airports, sometimes in the same day. It gives you a broad perspective, seeing what everybody's doing out there. Today, I'm in Roswell, New Mexico, in a hotel room. We have meetings with the Roswell Air Center down the street, which kind of goes well with the extraterrestrial highway thing earlier. But Roswell's very proud of their alien heritage here. And that's fun. I've spent time in Astoria, Oregon, and Roswell, New Mexico, and Pasco, Washington, and St. George, Utah, and all these places that we get to work. I would tell you to make sure you tell your supervisor what you like to do. If there's things that you're seeing your coworkers work on or that you really enjoy, tell your supervisor about that you'd like to get some exposure to that. That's something that both in the private sector and public sector is advice I would give any worker, because a lot of times they're going to try and work you into that thing that you're passionate about. That worked for me. I get to work in areas like urban air mobility, advanced air mobility, and then spaceports. That's one of the reasons I'm here in Roswell. They've got a really interesting facility that may have some spaceport potential. And so my company also works with Mojave Air and Spaceport. And so that's something that was a little bit new to me, but something I have a lot of passion about that I got to explore. Yeah, as a consultant, you can spend time and energy on things the public sector doesn't. That's always been fun. Your network will grow also as you go from public and networks are important for both. But I have noticed that as I've gone from the public sector to the private sector, my network of people that I know has grown exponentially. And it's if you let it, you have to get yourself out there. And the last thing I'd say is I was amazed and refreshed by moving into the private sector in consulting, of just how much collaboration and partnership and partnering among consultants there is. I did not realize that it was at that level. And I really enjoy that, working with all the different ACC members, and we might compete one day, but the next day we're working together. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it was a good chart that you kind of showed with all of your pros and cons. And I think everyone will have a little bit of different perspective depending on what they're coming from, their families, maybe their current situation, or whatever made them make that switch. And so we have Kevin, who went from working at an airport for the public sector to the private sector now for a consulting company. And our next speaker, Appy, is actually the opposite. She was working, she'll talk to you about her career, but when I first met Appy, I think she was working for RSNH for a consulting company, and now she's working, for the public sector for an airport. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Appy.
Thanks, Blanca. And thanks again for inviting me to participate in today's webinar. I love it. I wish there were more of these when I was a young professional, which reminded me that I'm not when you explained it's 35 and under. Thank you. So my name is Appy Appalingam. I'm the Chief Development Officer for the City of Philadelphia's Department of Aviation. And we own and operate 2 airports, Philadelphia International Airport, which everyone knows about, and then little GA Airport, Northeast Philadelphia Airport, which actually isn't as little as people think. It is the 3rd busiest airport in the state of Pennsylvania. So Philadelphia is number 1, Pittsburgh number 2, and then our little airport, Northeast Philadelphia Airport, is number 3. So it's not so little, but it's 2 airports. And so I oversee in my role architecture, engineering, environmental planning, and sustainability. And I have about a staff of about 80 individuals. And that's a mix of both City of Philadelphia staff like myself, and then also extension of staff, like maybe from the airport consultants community, where they come and they sit side by side with us in our offices, and they help us design and build projects here at both of our airports. So that's a little background about me, which I'm going to continue talking on the next slide. Blanca, if you can transition. Yep. So again, a reminder that I'm not a young professional. When I say I've been in the industry for 20 years, I can't believe it. So I'll be celebrating 20 years next in 2025. So I felt like I could round up. I think I'm going to round up. So instead of rounding down. So my first 15 years, I was at RS&H, which is an A&E firm that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I got a job actually right when I was in college. So in my senior year, I went to Texas A&M University. If there are any Aggies on this call, love for you to drop a note in the chat. Let's see if there's any Aggies on this call. But so I got a job senior year in college at RS&H, and didn't realize that I wanted to work in aviation, to be honest. I was dropping off my resume at RS&H and Brown and Gay and a lot of different companies that were in Houston. And then I was really fortunate enough that I was looking at who was paying me the most. So it wasn't necessarily I wanted to do aviation, but as a 20-something-year-old, I wanted to make the big bucks. So who was going to pay me the most? And it ended up being RS&H was going to do that. And so I started in their Houston office. And over the 15 years I was with RS&H, I had an opportunity to relocate to 2 more offices. And I wanted to talk about that because as a professional in the industry, sometimes the opportunities aren't just a promotion in your current office. The promotion comes in different ways, right? It could be a stretch assignment that you're getting to work on. It could be an international project that you could get to work on, or it could be a relocation to another city where even if it's the same role, you might be the only person in that office. And as a result, the point of contact to that client, right? So that gives you an opportunity to grow in your role versus being in a 100-person office and being a 1 of 100, and think about it as, okay, I'm going to be in a 3-person office and I'm going to have a lot of say in what happens in this office. So that's what happened to me. So I went from a large office in the Houston, Texas office to literally helping to set up the Dallas office in Dallas. And I think the biggest, when I was there, that Dallas was I think 5 people. So, and I had a lot of opportunities to interact, do business development, do proposals, go to conferences, go to luncheons, things that I had to sometimes not fight it out with others, but compete with others in a larger office. I got it more easily in a smaller office. And then in 2012, there was a large pursuit in Philadelphia that RS&H was going after, and I had another opportunity to relocate and help lead that. And so I said yes, and I moved to Philadelphia. So I was at RS&H for 15 years in 3 different cities. And then 5 years ago, I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary yesterday. June 17th was my 5-year anniversary. I can't believe it. Sometimes it feels like I've been here for 20 years alone, but 5 years, I've been with the City of Philadelphia. So 5 years ago, I got an opportunity. The former CEO of the airport asked if I was ever interested in joining the airport side. It's not something I thought about. So I was fortunate enough at RS&H to work at airports, not just in the United States, but also internationally. So I got a lot of experience, which I think comes better in the private sector than in the public sector. So, I don't know about other airports, but we don't do design here at Philadelphia International Airport, right? We don't stamp our drawings. We have consultants that do that. So I got to actually do that because I was on the consultant side. So I got to learn to design runways, to think about all the FAA advisory circulars and how to do construction, how to do design, how to collaborate, how to do all these how to work with different personalities. So I had an opportunity to do all that and build my skill set and my foundation. And so when that opportunity came to do more than that 5 years ago, I actually wasn't counting myself as somebody that could do it because I considered myself young at the time. I still do, but again, maybe not. And I was a young mom. I had just had my boys, my twins, and I was counting myself out because I hadn't seen representation like myself in a leadership role at an airport. It is a male-dominated industry, so I didn't see a lot of women leading capital development. And so when I looked at all of that, and I had a good support system in my family and my friends, they encouraged me to apply for it, and I did, and I got the role. And boy, was that a good decision, because the opportunities and what I've been able to do with the skill set that I built at RSNH really served me well here in the role that I currently have. That's why I think having the private sector experience and then moving to public sector, for me, was personally a great equation or combination. As I said, I'm a mom. I'm very proud to be a mom. I talk about that quite a bit because that's important. You know, we don't check ourselves, our personal lives at the door when we come into work. We bring our whole selves to work. And I've encouraged my team and everybody around me to embrace all of that. And especially since COVID, you know, everything is kind of fluid, where work stops and personal life begins. We're on 24/7, it seems like, right? And so it's important to embrace all aspects of our lives. So I do encourage a lot of, you know, sharing of stories, checking in on everybody, and just encouraging everybody to care about how we all carry ourselves every day. And then a little bit about me and maybe why I'm in aviation. So I've also had the opportunity to travel a lot. I've been to over 20 countries. I've also lived in 5 countries. So I was not born in the United States. I was born in Malaysia, and I've lived in 3 continents. So I am crossing off continents one by one. That's one of my bucket list items. So I've lived in Asia, I've lived in Africa, and obviously North America. And I've also traveled to Europe and Australia. I have 2 more continents to go, Antarctica and South America. Seems like I should have been able to do South America. That seems like an easy thing, right? But unfortunately, I have not been able to. And so hopefully I'll be able to do that, and Antarctica. And then I'm going to Denmark pretty soon. And I have a clue on this page. If anybody wants to guess in the chat box why I might be going to Denmark, I'm going to wait like 2 seconds to see if anybody's going to type it in. Don't disappoint me. Anyone? Okay, I will give the answer. So the clue, the picture is, if you can see, that's a Lego build of Dulles International Airport. So Legos was invented in Billund, Denmark. That's where it started. And my sons and my husband are big Lego fans. And so PHL just started nonstop service to Copenhagen, Denmark this year. And so we tend to travel quite a bit to where PHL travel goes nonstop, and Denmark is our next stop. So Denmark is where we're going next. And if there's any Lego fans on here, then you know you should add Denmark to your list. Next slide. So a little bit about what I do, and the next slides will share. I'll share some advice. So I oversee a capital development program that's valued at $1.8 billion. Again, an opportunity that that presented itself when I joined a few years ago, the capital program. I got to determine what projects were important to both of our airports, get to work on airline use and lease agreements. I know for folks that have been on the airport side, they know what that means, which it wasn't something I knew what it was when I was on the private sector. But to determine, like, from airfield to terminals to land side, look at our airports and determine what do we need to do today and what do we need to do tomorrow, and build a case for justifying capital projects and bring on capital projects. So my responsibility and my team's responsibility is to execute this $1.8 billion program, which we just brought on last July. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and a lot of consultants probably on this call and beyond that are helping us execute all of this work. Next slide. So how do I do this and what's important? I think both in the private sector and the public sector, teamwork is so important. You know, I'm here talking about myself, but I couldn't do all of this without the village that's around me. And so I'm very fortunate and truly, I can't even explain with words how lucky I am that I am surrounded by so many talented people that are passionate about aviation and passionate about the work that they do. And in Philadelphia here, we're focused a lot on sustainability and resiliency. And so we have taken that to the next level with a lot of the stuff that we're doing with the $1.8 billion program. And I just wanted to tell my story with pictures rather than words. So these photos, I'll start on the left. That's my whole team. We took a new photo just earlier this year because the one we had before was before COVID. So we wanted to do a reshoot, and we made it fun because it's not just all serious. We need to have a little bit fun around here as well. So it's a fun shot that shows kind of the depth of how many people are in my portfolio in the capital development program. Then the next photo right next to it on the top left is we've been really fortunate to get bipartisan infrastructure law funding in the last few years. And that really is a testament to the teamwork that we do, and really the foresight that we have in what capital projects are going to really serve us best, and maybe also serve or put us in a really good spot to get capital bill funding. So we've gotten over $175 million in bill funding. And from the airport terminal program alone, we received $75 million. And that photo right there is the team that led us in the latest grant that we received, which is $20.4 million we got earlier this year. The photo next to that on the right is airport carbon accreditation. As I mentioned, something we're really focused on, sustainability. A team really that I started hiring early on when I joined is a sustainability team, and building that sustainability team and people that really are focused on what they want to do in terms of building better for tomorrow. And so we started on the journey for airport carbon accreditation, and we're the first airport in the state of Pennsylvania to join the airport carbon accreditation program. And the top two photos just come from a couple of capital projects where either we're getting an award or we're doing a beam signing. I try to do a lot of team engagement with things that we get. A lot of these photos, for example, from the grant to an award, you might just hear about it in a newsroom story or an article on social media, right? What I always try to do is when we have success like that is to bring the team in and make them realize that all of their hard work got us to that point, and to celebrate each other. So whether it's a virtual celebration that we do or an in-person celebration that we do, is I try to make it a point to every one of these wins, no matter how small or big they are, is to celebrate each other and give ourselves a pat on our back and say, we did a great job. Let's keep doing great job, right? So teamwork, it takes a village. So surrounding yourself with this village is very important to be successful. Next slide. And then keep learning. I think this was maybe mentioned in, with the last speaker, but I think it's important when you look at somebody and what they have achieved in their career is that they didn't get to it just that day or that year or in a short amount of time. It takes a long time and focus, right? And so what I just wanted to show was, for me, it's a learning process. It's something that I'm still doing to this day. From the very first year I entered the aviation industry to now, right? I am still learning, and there's always hurdles on the way. And there might be even life changes that happens to you that puts you on a different trajectory. But it's important, if you have a goal in mind, right? If you're looking at somebody else who's already achieved it, is think about, how do I get there? It might not be an overnight thing. It might not be in a few years. Maybe it takes decades to get there, but have a plan, stay focused on it. So for me, I started off as an engineer. I'm an engineer, I have an engineering degree. And so for me, I knew I needed to get a professional engineer's license. So that was my focus in my early career, right? So I had an EIT and I got a PE license, and I thought that was it, and I was done. And then another opportunity presented itself where I knew I wasn't going to be a design engineer for the rest of my career. I wanted to do more project management, right? Business development. So RSNH provided a great opportunity where they would pay for continuing education. And so I took up that opportunity, and I know a lot of organizations do that, and I encourage everybody to do that if there is something like that. And so I pursued my MBA, and so I got that in 2012, and it wasn't easy. So I was a full-time employee at RSNH and a part-time student at the University of Dallas, and it was really tough. But it's something that I wanted to do because I wanted to have that skill set, or to learn what it was like, what an MBA was all about. And I thought it was done, right? And I was good with my life. And then I switched to the airport side, and then I heard about this AAE process. What's an accredited airport executive? That was not something that was, drilled into my head when I was a consultant, but it is very much in the public sector, right? So I was like, okay, tell me more about this. So that's also a process similar to a professional engineer's license where there's 3 steps. So you get your certified your CM, and then you do have to do either a paper or have a secondary degree, and then you have your AAE. So I set a plan to achieve that, and I set it unfortunately at the height of COVID, and so there were some hurdles in that, but it was again very difficult because I had a full-time job, and now I have children in my life, and I have a different career path than what I had before, but it was important to me that I be able to achieve this. So I set that goal, and I eventually did achieve it last year. And now I think I'm done, but talk to me about maybe in like 5 years and see if there's something different. So my point is keep learning, right? And if you're switching careers between public and private or vice versa, there might be different credentials that you need to pursue. And it might not be enough what you already have. And even if there's hurdles, it's okay. Surround yourself with that village that supports you and set a plan to achieve it. Next slide. And I think this was mentioned in the last with the last speaker, but get involved in the community and in the industry. And I wanted to just highlight 3 different organizations here just to show how I do it. So WTS, which many of you might be familiar with or not, it stands for Women's Transportation Seminar. It's a organization across the United States that has different chapters, and it's all about promoting women in the transportation industry. So not aviation specific, but transportation. I am the chapter president for Philadelphia. It's a role that will come to an end at the end of this year. I can't wait because it is a lot, but it is something that I feel very passionate about and strongly about. And again, it's an opportunity for me where I have a platform in the role that I have here at the airport, and I could use it to spotlight what women can achieve, what women can do. So an organization like WTS really provides that platform. And to see not just my airport supporting WTS, but private sector organizations supporting WTS is a great thing because there's a lot of women that are in the pipeline, and we just need to make sure that there's opportunities that are presented to them and given to them, and a network that's surrounding them to make sure that they stay in the industry and continue rising in the industry. And then, as I said, American Association of Airport Executives, it was something that I was kind of involved with when I was at RSNH, but really when it became a focus was when I switched over to the public sector because of the AAE process. And I'm proud to say I do have a leadership role in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee with AAE. I'm one of the vice chairs for it, and I get to help make the AAE industry more diverse. Maybe bring a little bit of what I do with WTS into AAE and vice versa. So AAE is one of those. And then my community. So I live in Philadelphia, and I had an opportunity to join the board of trustees for the Free Library of Philadelphia. It's one of the largest library organizations in the country. There's 55 neighborhood libraries in that system. And I have an opportunity to help young children in the city of Philadelphia get exposed to books and learning. And so I have a platform with the Free Library of Philadelphia to help that and continue that. And what I try to do is introduce the Free Library to WTS and vice versa, where I could show young children opportunities in STEM. So not just aviation, but science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also a little bit of aviation, and give them a taste of maybe what it is like to be in this industry and what a career might be like. I do also sit on the buildings committee for this organization, where I help to ensure that the 55 branches that are in existence are kind of being operated in a safe and efficient manner. So the skill set I have as an engineer, I get to bring to the Free Library. So again, my point is, this is not necessarily going to work for other people, but it does for me and what I have as a focus and what I value. So it's really important, though, that you do get involved in the industry, whether it's a leadership position or whether it's a committee position, or whether you're just active in the organizations by attending the lunches and building your network. Get involved in the industry. I know it's a very heavy focus in the private sector more than it's in the public sector. But boy, is it also awesome in the public sector, right? To get involved in the industry, because you might have a platform where more people listen to you, and you get to bring your skills or bring more people to an organization that might need that support and that platform. And I think that was my last slide. Yep.
Thank you, Afi. We really enjoyed hearing your story. And I think a lot of YPs on the call are probably in consulting and kind of can relate from where you started from. So hopefully you guys all took some advice away from Afi's story. Next, we will hear from someone with a different background. We will hear from Barry Rondinella. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. Yeah, this career field is probably the best in the world, in my humble opinion. I can't imagine doing anything differently than I've done these past, well, a lot of years. My career started off with the Air Force. I only wanted to fly jets. That's all I ever thought about. It's all I ever wanted to do. And got to do that for a while. You can flip the slide if you'd like. Got to do that for a while. And when it was time to get out, I had no clue what I wanted to do beyond what I did with the Air Force. So I kind of wandered around, did a number of different things, ran a small construction company. I interviewed with the CIA as a field agent. That's a fun story, but I won't bore you with it now. I would need about another 5 minutes of my time to do that. I eventually ended up working for the LA County Department of Airports at a little tiny airport in Pacoima, California called Whiteman. It's small, and my job was pumping gas into Pipers and Cessna airplanes. 6 months ago, I was flying supersonic jets, and I had a degree, and here I am pumping gas into small airplanes. The reality of it was I just wanted to be back around airplanes. And I love the aviation industry so much that I'd do just about anything to get there. So after a while, my airport was one where the assistant general manager didn't really like to work. He liked to hang out with the pilots and talk about flying. So for me, fortunately, I got to do a lot of his work. And I was pretty good at it, and I liked it. And one day, the manager of the airport came in and he dropped a job announcement on my desk. It was for an aviation transportation administrator running a very small airport and a very small transit system on the central coast of California in a little town called Lompoc. I applied for the job, got the job, and again, I liked doing it. I was good at it. So I did it for a number of years, and the general manager of the little bit bigger airport up the road one day gave me a call and said, "I'd like you to work for me." So this was my first opportunity to work for a commercial service airport, which is a big deal. GA is great and it's fantastic, but if you really want to advance your career, you really want to make more money, more salary, I think the commercial airport is the way to go. So I was happy to take the role as assistant general manager, and please feel free to change the slide, at the Santa Maria Public Airport District, again on the central coast of California in Santa Maria. Got to understand what it was like to have airline negotiations, run a Part 139 airport with all the requirements that brings with it. Eventually I was running the place. My boss got sick, sadly, and I was the acting general manager for about a year. From there, I found a job in a little place called Stockton, California, which is east of the Bay Area, south of Sacramento. And I was the airport director for a little bit bigger airport with a large industrial park, and gained some skill sets again with attracting not just commercial or passenger aircraft, but also cargo aircraft, which was a real eye opener to me. That's a little bit different industry. Ran the Santa Maria Airport for the San Joaquin Stockton Airport for about 7 years, 6.5. and realized that if I really wanted to take the next step on my career path, what I needed to do was get larger airport experience. There was an opportunity at the Sacramento International Airport, being the deputy director of operations. I applied, got the job, and learned that skill set, which again was something different than I had done. I'd come up through smaller airports, and always as number one. So now, or number 1.5, if you will. So now I had the opportunity to run operations, and it is a 24/7 thing. You don't get time off, really. I mean, the phone, as I think it was Kevin who was mentioning, always rings. And it's usually on a Saturday night or a Sunday night. And something bad has just happened at your airport that you need to respond to. After a bit, I started thinking about what I wanted to do long term. And for me, it was, I think where I'd like to end up is running a medium hub airport somewhere in California. And working at Sacramento gave me the opportunity to benchmark other airports. What did they do well? What did they do poorly? How did we compare with them? And the more I benchmarked airports, the more I fell in love with John Wayne Airport in Southern California. Similar size to Sacramento, about 11 million passengers. And I started targeting that. I thought, what do I need to do to Avi's point, have a plan, have a big picture plan of where you want to end up, and then craft your next steps around that plan. So for me, it was, I wanted to end up there. What do I need to do to get there? The accreditation, the AAAE, AAE accreditation was certainly a big step on that. But I also thought that I needed large hub experience if I was going to run a medium hub airport. At some point in my career, a job at LAX as director of operations came available. And I really thought it was out of my league. But I thought, what the heck, every once in a while you got to throw the long ball for the touchdown. I'll give it a try. I applied, and to my surprise, I got a phone call that said, we'd like you to interview with us. I said, really? And they said, yeah, come interview. So I interviewed, and I did okay, did so. Didn't knock it out of the park, but did okay. Shortly after that, I got another phone call, said, we'd like you to come to second interview. Really? And I said, yes, really. And so I did. And then I got a phone call a while later saying, we'd like to offer you the job. And I said, really? It was way off the charts for what I thought I was capable of doing, but went ahead and jumped in with both feet, and it was amazing. I think I would liken it to a White House job where it's 24/7, it's always going, even on vacation, you're working, it never stops. I would wake up in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and start reading through the emails and texts of all the things that went wrong while I was sleeping. And I would literally be triaging emails and texts while I was brushing my teeth. Don't worry about the water leak, go to the sewer leak. That's a little more important, or, whatever. And then you'd go through the day like that, and about 10, 11 o'clock at night, you fall into bed and do it all over again. You run on adrenaline, and it is incredible, but I don't believe you can do that kind of job for an entire career. One day, I saw the announcement for the John Wayne Airport director position. That was what I had been targeting for the last 7 years of my life, and so I was quite excited. I knew that I'd be working directly for elected politicians, which I had done at San Joaquin and Santa Maria. But this was a little bit higher level with the Orange County Board of Supervisors. So I knew with the vagaries of the hiring process and interviewing with politicians that regardless of whether you were the top candidate or fifth candidate, nothing was guaranteed. So I was very surprised when they offered me the job. And let me just take an aside here. If you ever interview for higher level politicians who are very partisan, by the way, Mr. Smith, at that level, they become incredibly left leaning or right leaning, and there's lots of tugs and pulls. It's interesting. But if you ever get to interview with politicians at that level, remember, they don't want to hear you talk. They want to hear themselves talk. They already feel like you're qualified for the job. That's why you're there at the interview. And they just want to know now that you value them. I was actually the number 2 candidate coming into that interview. And the other gentleman that was the number 1 candidate essentially talked himself out of the job. He really liked to talk about himself and promote himself. And when I got in, I was right after him. I kept my answers short, lots of yeses and nos. You're the board. We all work for you. This is what, how we will get to where you want to get to. And when my entire interview was 12.5 minutes. And as I was walking out, the chairman of the board walked into the door and I said, that's the shortest interview of my entire life. He said, that's okay. You understand how to talk to electeds. So I got that job and ran the John Wayne Airport for 6 years. Absolutely fantastic job, dream job. 85% of my job, I will say, was the best job on the planet. The interaction with the elected politicians, that 15%, probably not as much fun. That was where the difficulty came in. A lot of it because oftentimes elected politicians at that level couldn't care less about the airport. The airport is a means to extract money for other things that they want to do. Procurement processes get kind of perverted. It's not necessarily who wrote the best response to the RFP. It's not necessarily who's going to do the best financial job for the airport. It may just be that there's a political connection between that consultant and the board or members of the board. So that was an eye opener for me and something to consider. I retired at the end of 2001 from the public sector, and there's various reasons for that, but it was time. It was the right time for me. And I gravitated towards the consulting field, something I've been talking with friends about for several years leading up to my retirement date. Got lots of great feedback, lots of good networking opportunities to discuss how do you do it, would I be successful, do I have the skill set, that kind of thing. But there wasn't anything readily available when I left the airport. 80K Executive Search, some of you may know them, reached out to me and said, we've heard you retired and we'd like you to come help us recruit airport executives and the future of the aviation industry. And I really, really liked that job. 80K is just a wonderful company, a group of incredible people doing fun work. And I did that for a period of time. The only downside with 80K was they didn't take care of benefits like health benefits. You were a 1099 employee, so you're an independent contractor. So, I was dropping like 30 grand a year in health benefit costs. So I needed to go find another job that paid for that benefit. And one day, a friend of mine heard I was looking around, and Howard Page, I don't know if any of you know him, but he talks like this. He said, "Hey, buddy, you want to come work for me at 80K at Aurora Engineers?" And I asked him what I'd be doing, and it was business development, and he told me about the bonus structure and all of that. And I went to work with them for the past year and a half. About 2 months ago, I got a call from my friends at 80K, and they said, we need your help finding a CEO for an aviation real estate company, basically a limited fixed base operator. And so I sat on their panel talking with the company and learning what they needed for their next CEO, and realized they needed somebody right now. They wanted to part company with their existing CEO sooner rather than later. And I told them, you're going to need somebody in the interim while we look for your next leader. And they asked me, they said, would you do it? And I thought about it for a while, and it had benefits and had medical coverage. So I agreed to do that, and that's where I am sitting today. It has been an odyssey, and I'm really enjoying where I am now. I'm looking out over an airfield, Kevin. So even though I'm not managing an airport or directing an airport any longer, I do get to look at airplanes taking off and landing in this role. So that is my story. Happy to answer any questions when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry. And I think I'm starting to hear some of similar mentions from different speakers, like having that vision for yourself, not just jumping around or transitioning careers, but actually, having a purpose. And I think everyone transitions at the right time for them based on their current situation. And so those were some very good tips, and just based on your personal experience. So if anyone has any questions, drop them into the Q&A, because I think we were having some issues with the chat. I think it's not enabled. So Grace, if you can please help with that. So if you guys have tried putting things in the chat, you can also use a Q&A. I think that one should be working, that feature. And we'll go now with TJ, who is with the Sacramento County Airport System, and he has a little bit of a different story. And after TJ, we'll go ahead and open the floor for Q&A. So please take it on, TJ.
Great, thank you, Blanca, and also the ACC Young Professionals Committee. I'm truly happy to be here, and I know all the panel members professionally have crossed paths with each one of them, and certainly when I heard about having Barry, Kevin, and Avi on the panel, I was just definitely excited, just especially since I have crossed paths professionally with all of them. So for me, I currently work for Sacramento County Department of Airports. We operate 4 airports, 1 commercial service, and 3 general aviation. And one of our general aviation is gigantic airport. It used to be our Air Force base, transferred to us, to the county in 1998. And I have a long history with Mayfair Airport as well. My very first assignment after I started my career was to walk every piece of payment out there as part of the payment management system. I think airport engineers should know what that's like, and especially in the summer where it's 95-degree heat out there. So definitely good times and bring back a lot of memories. And so the next slide. Currently, my role with the Department of Airports, it's I'm part of the department's leadership team, and my primary responsibility and focus is on developing, executing, and guiding successful strategies for various mission-critical initiatives. Most of them center around capital improvement and our capital improvement program, and currently our $1.3 billion capacity enhancement program as moving forward. Other mission-critical strategies I have led and delivered for the department included bringing Amazon air cargo to Sacramento County. I deliver a pretty good size of retail concession program. I work with my team members and also county staff to overcome major land use challenges to enable one of the largest residential development in the county. That was probably 10 years in the making and started well before I got there, and I was able to finish that and enable the residential development, which is very critical to the county. So I'm very glad to deliver that. Other kind of interesting projects I was able to deliver with my team is we delivered SA Cat 3 or Cat 2 for both the Sacramento International Airport and Mayfair Airport, and we're in the process of delivering a privately owned or a non-FAA owned, most likely will be the first in the country, a non-FAA owned full Cat 3 ILS for Mayfair Airport. UPS operate out of there. They've been demanding a Cat 3 at Mayfair for a long time, so hopefully in 2 years we will be able to deliver that. It's truly exciting for us. And I'll talk about my career path a little bit, but one of the projects during one of my stops, which was at the FAA, I initiated the project to deliver a new air traffic control tower for Sacramento International Airport. That process started 20 years ago, and due to funding, FAA took a pause on that project, and because BIL, we're able to secure funding, and we're well on the way to deliver new air traffic control tower for Sacramento International Airport. That's very exciting. And I think all the panel members can speak to, especially with our careers, or especially with the airport industry. There's a funny way of things come full circle, and eventually we'll come back to some initiatives we started years back, and able to see a project finally come to a completion after 15, 20 years. So it's I'm pretty excited, pretty grateful about able to deliver the air traffic control tower. So my career, I'm an engineer, but my current responsibility require me to also deliver planning environmental sustainability projects. And in the recent years, obviously, we delivered the airport master plan update to enable SMN Forward program. And as we are well on the way with our $1.3 billion program, we also just kick off another master plan update to look at post SMN Forward and what we need to continue to do to deliver a great airport for our community. So that's well on the way. I think from a workload perspective, try to deliver a $1.3 billion program which needs to be done by 2028, and also embarking on another major master plan. I know I'm tasking my team very heavily, and but I guess that's come with the territory when you work at the airport. So the next slide. Just want to give a quick overview of our SMN program. It's comprised of 7 projects. I'll just quickly go through them. First project that's well on the way is a pedestrian walkway. It's scheduled to break ground in August. And also, we just awarded a contract to build a $390 million parking garage, which should break ground in October. And we have to build a new terminal exit roadway. We also need to, part of that is a new consolidated ground transportation center. And very quickly, we have to transition to expanding Concourse B. And also right after Terminal A expansion. And lastly, it's our largest and most complex project within SMN Forward, which is to deliver a brand new consolidated rental car facility. As you can see in this diagram, our goal is to bring a walkable, a close-in campus for Sacramento International Airport. Many of our facilities, such as a rental car facility in the parking lots, you need to take a shuttle bus, and we try our best to eliminate that with this SMN Forward program. So it just brings some of the customer center amenity close in, and which create a lot of challenges as well. But this is our objective right now, and we're excited to have it delivered. We're on track to deliver by all these projects by 2028, latest by 2029. Next slide. And here's just a bird's eye view of these projects, how it compares to the existing facility. All the blue color buildings or facilities are the 7 projects within SMN Forward. As you can see, very quickly, the airport campus will get very congested, and we have ways to manage that moving forward after these projects are completed. So next slide. So I'll quickly kind of talk about my career, and as ACC reached out, I don't really do much about career reflections, self-reflections, and for me, just personally, I'm always about looking forward to see what I need to get done, and how to move things forward. So I do appreciate the opportunity to do a little bit of self-reflection. I started my career as an engineer intern with FAA. I studied to be a civil engineer at college. I was set and ready to be a foundation engineer. I got really good at it. I started really think about master's degree, which I eventually did do, a master's degree in civil engineering, and I was going to focus on foundation design. And I thought I was on my career path until the FAA made a call and see if I was interested to be an intern. And just funny story, when they called, my immediate response to that to my future manager was, I don't want to be an air traffic controller. Why do I want to work with FAA? And he said, hold on, there's a big airport development aspect of the FAA, and definitely piqued my interest. I wasn't their top candidate, and the top candidate is a good friend of mine at school. She declined, and I was the number 2 guy, and yeah, obviously worked out pretty well, and it started my 25 plus careers in just strictly in airports and aviation. As a civil engineer, even though I studied foundation engineering design, if you want me to design a bridge or roadway or foundation, I can tell you I don't know how to do it. I have gotten it all, but you want me to do airfield design, terminal design, I can do it behind the back of a napkin. So that's how entrenched I'm in the airport industry. I'm a licensed civil engineer in California, and throughout my 25 plus year career, I held 4 positions, and I started my full-time position with a design consultant, which is the predecessor to me and Hunt. I stayed there for about 6 years. When I left, that's when me and Hunt came in and bought the small consulting firm I worked for 6 years. One of my best jobs in my career. I was just a young kid, 23 years old, didn't know better, worked for a very small firm, and it was great. And it's located in the wine country in Santa Rosa. There's a lake about 10 minutes away. During summertime, one of my coworkers and I, who was a couple of years older than me, he has a boat. We just take the boat out to go wakeboarding as our lunchtime activity. We go off there for a couple of hours and came back to work. And every Friday afternoon was a beer time. So there's a lot of drinking and involved during those days. So we can't do that anymore, unfortunately. But one of my funnest job ever. And the company had two airplanes, so we flew everywhere. It was a great feeling, especially Northern Cal. Tuesday morning, we'll fly out, before sunrise, and then we'll come back after sunset. Just seeing Northern Cal, Nevada, and Arizona, and Oregon from the air. It's great. It's from 7,000 feet. You can't beat that experience. So after 6 years, I had an opportunity to transition back to the FAA as a program manager. Basically, I'm the money guy, doling out AIP grants. Did that for about almost 9 years. And, looking back, I literally got bored working for the FAA, doing the same thing for 9 years. I got really good at it, managing grants. And I hope Kevin can attest to that. I gave Truckee, the airport he worked at, millions of dollars. And that's definitely the best part of my job. But I still got bored, and I was born and raised overseas and always wanted to do international work. I was able to jump on an opportunity with an aerospace company, and they intentionally want to hire somebody that can manage their primary Pacific Rim, and also start a joint venture company in China. And I thought I could speak Chinese, fake my way through the interview, telling them that I'm well versed in Mandarin. And when I got to China, I had to relearn Mandarin over again, but it was one of the best experience I ever had, and also one of the most demanding positions I've ever taken on. It's just primarily having to learn different business culture, the business practices, and the travel demand was pretty intense. My longest flight was I done around the world flights a couple of times. One of my most demanding flight was from Santiago, Chile to Singapore. I was in the air the total flight time was 34 hours. And it was pretty insane. By the time I got to Singapore, I was pretty worn out, but still have a job to do. There's a lot of meeting I'm engaged to hold, and people I have to meet. But that was definitely a very long week. Transition from Santiago for a conference, a 4-day conference, and directly to Singapore for multiple days of 4-day meetings. And that was a fun part. Also, not the fun part. I have a young family at home, really young kids at home, and I know I really upset my wife with my travel schedule. So with that, did that for about 4 years, and been to about 25 plus countries. I traveled to over 100 airports throughout my career, including my days with FAA. And like I said, one of my best experiences, also most demanding position I ever held. After 4 years, my wife told me that I have to call it quits. And luckily, during my FAA days, I made some good connections. And there was vacancy about to come up at Sacramento County. And my predecessor reached out, gave me a call. I guess working with them during my FA days made a good enough impression with him, and he was asked to develop a succession plan for his position. He called me and we spoke over a year, and the rest is history. I've been with Sac County for 9 years, and really great experience, and really focus on not just the project delivery and the project execution, really about how to be a great leader, how to build a great organization, and we're not intentionally look for accolades, but some of the recognition we receive over the years since I've been there really validates, as a leadership team, what we're doing right, what area we need to improve on, and really be more mission focused as far as the organization, what we need to do, and really focus on people and how to develop best talents, how to ensure that they stay with us, continue to buy into our mission, our vision, and our culture, and make sure they continue to be successful themselves, and how to foster an environment that they will be successful. And I want to finish my career reflection or my presentation by sharing that the 4 years I was traveling overseas is all about the people. Opportunity to meet some great, awesome people, airport professionals overseas, especially in the Pacific Rim, from Japan all the way to Indonesia. And one of the best advice and quote that was given to me by the U.S. ambassador to China, over to Vietnam at the time. I had an opportunity to meet with him and had dinner with him. He told me, I asked him a lot about his career, learn about his career path. And he told me that I was about 35, 36-year-old, and really happy where I'm at, but also seeking advice. He told me that, as you look around, you might think that other people have better career path, or they just simply got lucky. And he told me that as a professional, you always got to be prepared and be ready. And so you can put yourself in a position to be lucky. Don't be envious of others. You gotta be prepared and be ready. And so you can, when the opportunity comes up, you're ready to grab it and be successful at it. That's probably the one of the best advice for somebody very high up in the politics. And even for him to sit down with me, have dinner, and talk a lot about his career, really learn from him, and give me one of the best advice I ever had in my career. So that's how I always strive to do. It's difficult, and as professionals and leading in organization or in this profession, it's hard. We get pulled in many different ways. Sometimes we're going to a situation we have to wing it. We're not as prepared as we want to be, but we have to rely on our experience and our advice people gave us, and really put ourselves in a position to be lucky, to be successful. So I'll end with that, and just like all the panel members, were eager to hear questions and answer questions the attendees may have. So thank you all for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, TJ. That was interesting. And I am also from another country, so I wanted to have a little bit more of the internationals. And so it's very interesting to see, it's about the people and the connections that you make throughout your career, like when you started with the FAA, etc. So we're going to go ahead and open the floor for any questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everyone, or we can see at least the speakers. And I'm gonna go ahead and look at one of the questions that came through via the Q&A is for Kevin. What helped you make the switch to consulting after 20 years in the public sector?
That's a great question. Some of it had to do with some of the other panelists that talked about, just after 26 years working with elected and appointed officials, and they're great. I love those folks. And Barry's right. There's politics that get in there. Some of it's partisan, some of it's not. And it's amazing of what you think is going to be partisan, but isn't. And then what they do get into that. The other thing real quick that made me kind of think, strategic decision making in the public agency seems to happen at a little bit slower pace, but that day-to-day stuff that Ian Barry talked about, and I know Appy and probably TJ have the same, the day-to-day stuff is so rapid and it can wear on you. And so for, after 26 years, it was kind of time to, what else can I do? What else is out there? How can I take some of these things I've learned and apply it to other airports and see what else is happening? And so that's kind of why I made that transition. I was approached by a company that said, hey, Meet and Hunt, would you consider coming in and working as a market leader for us? And I thought for a minute, said, yeah, maybe I would like to do that. And so as we sat down and talked about it, I decided just to make that transition after, a lot of years in the public sector. But I loved my time working for public agencies, both at the city level as an assistant city manager and then as an airport director. And I know there's probably a lot of other questions, but the one advice I can give you is before you jump into that, working for an airport, as particularly at a leadership level, is make sure you understand what it means to work with elected and appointed officials. It is not for everyone. And get as much exposure to that in the organization you work for now, so that if an opportunity to lead comes up, that you're ready for what is required to support elected and appointed officials. So I'll just leave it with that.
Thanks, Kevin. We have another question from the audience that I want to ask, and this can be for anybody. When you have made career transitions, how have you handled the communication of your departure to your current colleagues? Are there any ways to deliver that message that you have found to be effective or ineffective?
I'll take a stab at it. I think just looking back, don't second guess yourself. You already made a decision. Just be frank and honest about it. And they're gonna counter offer, but hopefully you all made a decision through careful evaluation. That means your mind's already made up. Just let them know, and hopefully in your tenure with soon to be the company you work for, you establish a lot of credibility, and you build good relationships. And when I told my boss, every job that I have decided to leave, I think they were more happy for me than anything else. They kind of knew that if you're as good as you are, you think you are, and you truly have established yourself, I think especially your boss, they've been around for a long time. They see potential in an employee right away. They know if you're a high potential employee, tenure at a company it's limited, and they know they're gonna move on, and they won't be surprised. You think they won't be, and because we all see potential in our employees, and when they decide to move on, it won't be a surprise to them. Just have that honest discussion, and again, it's about the people. Make sure you don't burn a bridge, but just have the honest dialogue with the boss.
Yeah, I agree. Any good boss is going to want you to take the next step in your career field. They've spent time mentoring you and working with you. They know it's a matter of time. The hard part is leaving the team. I mean, this group of people that you soldiered with, side by side in the trenches, and they come to be second family. And I've had a great blessing of always working with fantastic people around me. And so that's the hard part for me is sitting down with them and saying, I'm leaving you, I'm going on to something else. But it doesn't mean I don't love you. It's just I got to keep growing, and I hope we get to work together somewhere down the line.
And I'll also add excellent points TJ and Barry made is my advice would be do it in person when you're resigning from your job. I think, no matter what level of the organization you are in, I think it's important to be professional. And as TJ said, don't burn any bridges. This is a small industry. You certainly want to leave on a good note, a good positive note, unless, of course, it was just a horrible experience where like HR had to get involved and legal had to get involved. But if you're moving on to better opportunities for yourself, leave on a positive note, right? And because they might end up being a client of yours, or they might end up being a consultant that works for you. And so my advice is, always leave on a positive note, resign in person, allow for enough time to transition your role. So don't necessarily say peace and leave, expect that, you might want to stick around for a few weeks or more, depending on how long your tenure was at that company. And also, I think depending on the level in your organization, there might be some protocol involved in that as well. For example, for me, it was interesting because RSNH was a client at Philadelphia International Airport. Philadelphia International Airport was a client of RSNH. So when I got the job offer from the CEO of the airport, what I told her was, can I take some time to first tell my boss and my colleagues before PHL makes the announcement, even internally, because news gets out pretty quickly, right? And whether it's accidental, it slips from somebody's mouth or not, right? It's a small industry, and I don't want any rumors to start, or I don't want anybody to make any assumptions. So again, there might be some protocol in your organization also. So just be mindful of that. And again, leave on a positive note is my advice, because you might be interacting with them very soon.
I would agree with all that. It's a small network, and talk to your boss in person, and they should be happy for you. If the agency values you, they'll be happy for you as you move on.
Thank you. And we have a couple more questions through the Q&A that just came through. And if you like, you can start, Kevin, if you have a comment since you're already on. Do you think that there are disadvantages at staying at one job in your whole career? And this is open to all speakers to answer this question.
Oh, gosh, I think again it gets back to what you value. I see people in my company here at Mead and Hunt that have spent their whole career here, and they've done some amazing things, and they've loved it. So I wouldn't say it's an advantage or disadvantage. It's just more what you value, what you enjoy doing, and are you fulfilled, and do you have that right work-life balance? That's what I'd say.
Does anyone else have anything different? If not, we have more questions.
Kevin nailed it.
Perfect. Go ahead, Morgan.
Okay, if you begin a new position and it doesn't seem to be a good fit, how long do you think it should be until you can be sure it's not working out? So like, how long do you think you need to stay at that one specific job for before maybe looking for a new one?
That's a tough one, because again, it depends on the situation and what it is that you don't think is a good fit. If you have a bad boss, that's very different than, you are maybe didn't get to go to a conference that you wanted to go to, right? I think you have to look at what is it that you wanted to achieve in this role, and did you set a timeline for yourself to achieve something? And is it that there's people in the way? Is it that you need to maybe prepare yourself to achieve those things? For me, it's really hard to say whether it's a one month you give yourself or 10 years you give yourself, right? It really depends on, I think, again, assuming you have a professional relationship and a good relationship at your workplace and there's respect, and all of those things aside, right? Are you not getting the stretch assignments or going to conferences or being involved in proposals, or being invited to events, things like that? I guess, what did you want to achieve? And also my advice would be, do not necessarily compare yourself to somebody else, because you don't know what they might be, what skill set they might have that you're not necessarily seeing, or what they're doing that you're not seeing. So it's easier said than done, but try not to compare yourself to somebody else at your job, because you might not know the whole truth about what that person is doing. So I know I didn't answer this. It's a hard one. I don't know if there's a magic number to give yourself at a company or an organization.
So, there's two things I'd like to offer. The first is never leave a place until you have another job. It's a lot easier to find a job when you have a job than when you don't. So that would be rule number one for me. If it's, awful, horrible, I don't think there's any time limit. If they're mistreating you, if it's, bad, you just get out, right? So save your sanity, but find another role before you do. But as a rule of thumb, if this is going to happen more than once, it's going to look like you're job shopping if you leave before 2 or 3 years. So as a general kind of, this isn't the best fit in the planet for me, but I can live here, and I don't have another job waiting for me. I try to stick around for at least 2 years.
So agree with both Abby and Barry. I think I'll offer a different perspective. I think just my career, whenever I think about changing jobs, is very much agree with Barry. Do not change out unless you have a job already lined up, ready to go, have an offer in hand. I think that's very good advice, very critical. I think you have to really, even before you start searching for a new job or different job, is really be honest to yourself. What does success looks like in your next step? Because success can take years to realize. I'll share my experience with starting a joint venture company in China for the U.S. company I work for. That was a 4-year process. That was my baby for 4 years. And they told me that's what you have to do. I didn't realize how much setback I experienced trying to start a company in China. There was multiple setbacks. I was very discouraged. And sometimes at times I feel like the team, my team in the US, the entire company did not give the support I needed. And at times it was very discouraging. I feel like I wasn't in the best position. But then still went back to, I agree to take on this position early on. The success to me for this position is to start a joint venture company. And if that's my goal, I agree to it. And that is a success you're trying to achieve. So yes, there will be setbacks. I'm sure all the panel members here throughout our career, we experience significant setbacks. And when you have setbacks, we're gonna get frustrated. It doesn't mean it's not a good fit. Those are setbacks. You have to separate that from whether it's a good fit for your career or not. And setbacks are discouraging and demoralizing at times. So you have to separate that out, and you have to give every position a try at some time. And sometimes success won't come until years later. You just got to be honest to yourself. What does that mean to you, and what does that mean to your career path?
Yeah, that's all great advice. The only thing I'd add to all the great comments already is, for myself, I set my own core personal values, which I imagine a lot of you have thought about that and probably have your own. But I made sure particularly when I was running a special district, an airport district, I made sure my board knew that anything they asked me to do has to be legal, it has to be ethical, and it has to be safe. And sometimes you can debate some of those things, but they knew that if they were asking me to do something that didn't fit that, or that there was a question, we're gonna have to talk about it, or I'm not doing it. And so, those are the things that I just didn't want to ever violate. And I agree with what Barry and Appy and TJ have said. Fine, make sure you have another job before you leave the job you have. But if you see you're starting to head down that path where your own personal core values are being violated, then yeah, maybe it's time to find a place that values what you value.
I just want to add one more thing. I just thought about it is, it's up to you also when you find a job to determine what is it exactly that you are signing up for, right? An interview is two ways, not one way. So when you're being interviewed for the job, it's an opportunity for you to also ask the questions of your future employer. What is it that you want me to do? What do you see for myself in this role? To the best of your ability, learn about the future job before you switch to that job. And money is not the only answer. Do not just go to another organization because they're paying you more money. So my point I wanted to make is, when you're deciding that your current job isn't what you want to stay in and you want to go to another job, make sure that other job, it has those things that you're looking for. So do your research, find out as much as possible, because you don't want to go to that job and then find out it doesn't have those things either. So do your due diligence in trying to find that next company that you want to go work for.
Thank you. That's good advice. We have 2 more, but we're gonna go over one. We're right at the 11:30, so we're just gonna ask one more. So this one is for Appy and probably can relate to TJ Chen as well, because you're at airports currently. Is there a lot of opportunities working at airports for younger engineers? It seems that a lot of the openings tend to be much higher up positions, and candidates are contacted directly, like in your case. And I don't know if that was your case or not, but maybe you can share a little bit more.
Yeah, so so it's a different hiring process for a leadership role versus an entry-level position. So, and I'll speak for Philadelphia International Airport is, we go through ADK and other recruiting firms when we're hiring leadership positions, right? Versus if it's an entry-level engineer, we don't necessarily use ADK. The city of Philadelphia has their own recruitment process. And so that's the pipeline through which graduate engineers enter through and mid-level engineers enter through. But one piece of advice that I would give to a young engineer is, this is my personal opinion, it might not be shared by anybody else. I think it's better in the private sector as an engineer to start off in, because I think all of you have heard when you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport, right? And so if you're an engineer, and I'll specifically target it to engineers, if you start at one airport as a civil engineering graduate, you're just going to work on that one airport and whatever that one airport has, which might not be a large amount of engineering work. It might be you're doing a whole lot of different things. At a private sector company, depending again the size of that company, you're going to work at potentially hundreds of airports across the United States and internationally, and that gives you the experience of working at a GA airport, a small airport, a medium-sized airport, a large hub airport, an international airport. So you're getting to learn ICAO standards. You're getting to compare that to FAA standards. There's so much tools that you're adding to your tool belt working in the private sector, where, again, my personal opinion is that builds that foundation to when you take a leadership position or even a higher level position, either at another private organization or in a public sector, you use those experiences to make decisions rather than necessarily relying on somebody else who's had those experiences to tell you what's best. So again, my personal opinion, if you're a young engineer, start off on the private sector, build your experience, get that PE license, because that's important. I don't see very many people that started in the public sector in the engineering role continuing in that PE license path, but that's very important. Get that PE license and build your network, and then consider switching to either a public organization, public sector organization, or another organization.
I'll just offer really quick. Everything Abby said is all correct and true, and certainly I started in the private sector to sort of get my experience, cut my teeth in design construction, and that's where I got my PE as well. I think private sector does offer a lot of opportunities for you to broaden your skill set. Absolutely. Just to talk about the public sector process. Public sector, we have every public organization, it has its own hiring process. It's typically it's an examination process. You have to get qualified for certain positions, even entry-level positions. And so my advice to you is, if there's a city or municipality or county that you're targeting, look at their human resource website, look at their job openings, and you have to qualify. You have to submit. Some doesn't take resume. You have to go through their application process and meet the minimum requirement, and you get on the list, a qualified list. You don't get on the list, you won't even get a call. You submit a resume, it doesn't matter. You have to go through each municipality's hiring process. Typically, it's an exam process. Get on the list. When the position opens up, the hiring manager will pull the list to see who's qualified, and they will evaluate the applications for each candidate, then call for interview. So it's really important for young professionals. They don't want to work for the municipality as an engineer, entry-level engineer. Get on the list. That's what I tell people. Email your resume to me. I can help you. You have to get on the list.
Yep, good point.
And also, every municipality is different. I have 10 engineers and architects that work for my division, and most of our licensed professionals, architects and engineers. And for my department, our engineer architect, they do design work themselves, and then they do tons of design work. They stamp their own plans and specs, and sometimes they ask me to stamp some more complex plans. I stamp and sign them. I really don't want to, but I still do. So every municipality different. You got to do your homework about if you still want to have that balance of working for public sector, still able to design. There are a lot of municipalities that do offer that, allow engineer to do design work and stamp and sign the plans. Also, many of my engineers are as RE doing construction, and I certainly support that. It's just because that's their career. There's something experience they have to gain, And even for our most senior seasoned engineers, my goal is create as much opportunity for them. So if they do have opportunity to do career changes, they're well prepared for that. I know they're not going to stay with us for a long time. And that's how I prepare for my team is they may not stay with us for a long time. And my job is to provide them as many opportunities as I can, and to meet their career goals. If that includes design, great. It just feel work great. And my job is to provide them those opportunities.
Great. Go ahead, Morgan.
Thanks for answering those questions, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap up today's call. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or Blanca. And with that, thank you again to our speakers, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you all.
time.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.